Hey guys, Jocelyn here with Fantasia Elegance. In this video I'll be showing you how to make this little Celtic cross wire wrapped charm or pendant. And I did mean to have this out around Easter time, but didn't wind up getting to that because my husband and I actually adopted a new dog. His name is Jack, and the shelter thinks he is about a 10-month-old black lab mixed puppy. So anyway, he has been very much preoccupying my time lately. I've kind of been watching him 24/7, making sure he doesn't destroy the new house, and making sure he gets lots of love and cuddles, so that's why this video has been a little bit delayed. But I figured better late than never, so we are going to jump right in and learn how to make this little cross. As far as tools and materials goes, you will be needing your standard chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, flush cutters. As always, I do have in the description section below a list of the exact brands I'm using and where you can get them. For wire, you'll need some 20 and 28 gauge round dead soft wire. I will be using sterling and fine silver that I purchased from riogrande.com. You can use whatever you like as long as it's 20 and 28 gauge soft wire. The measurements I'm using will be for a fairly small finished pendant size. It's going to measure just about 2 inches from the bottom of the cross to the top of the bail, and just about 1 1/8 inches wide from tip to tip. So if you want your cross larger or smaller, you will need to size up or down accordingly instead of following the exact measurements I'm giving. So to get started, I'm just going to cut 2 lengths of our 20 gauge wire here. So I'm going to straighten off a long length of this, pull out my ruler, and we're going to cut 2 10-inch long pieces. For those of you in metric, that's going to be just about 25.5 centimeters. So we'll cut 2 of those. And we're going to start out by weaving the length of this. As you can see here, we have done this weave before in some other projects on my channel. It's the very simple 2 base wire weave where you wrap around alternating both wires and one of the wires. What we're going to do to start is line up both of our base wires together so they're going parallel with each other. I'm going to measure in about 2.5 inches from the end. So right there, I'm just going to kind of mark that with my thumb. And that is where we're going to start our weave. And I like to have my weaving wire on these little spools. I do have in the description section below a link for where you can purchase these. Basically, you just wind it on and then it helps tension it for you so that you can weave directly from the spool. So I'm just going to unwind a little length of this. I'm going to leave myself about a 2-inch tail or so. I'm going to lay that right over that point we marked earlier. Just hold it down with my thumb and my left-hand fingers, and I'm going to start by wrapping this wire around both of our base wires 3 times. So there's 1, 2, and 3. I'm not going to pull that terribly tight because we want to have room now to wrap it around just the lower of our 2 wires. So I'm going to separate out my base wires slightly. I'm going to bring this weaving wire between them. So right between here like that, and I'm going to wrap 3 times around just the lower wire. Alright, so there's 1, we're going to wrap it around again. There's 2, wrap it around just that lower wire 3rd time, pulling it tight. There's 3. And at this point I'm just going to use my chain nose pliers to snug that together a little bit. Just like that. We're going to repeat that, taking our weaving wire, going around both of our base wires 3 times. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Just like that. We're going to start bringing it between again to wrap 3 times around the lower wire. There's 1, 2, and 3. And we're just going to repeat this pattern for quite a ways now. So again, wrapping around both. Let me get this tail out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Wrapping around both wires 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Wrapping around just the lower wire 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. And as you can see, every few wraps I kind of snug everything together. with my fingernail. You can also, of course, use your chain nose pliers to kind of snug things together there a little bit if you need to. Again, going around both wires, 1, 2, 3, and around the lower wire only, 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so hopefully you're getting the hang of that. We're just going to continue that weave until we have reached a point at the end where we only have an equal 2.5 inches left at the end. So we're going to just continue that weave until we reach that point right there. So here's what we have now. As you can see, we've just continued that pattern all the way along until we have 2.5 inch lengths on either side of our wire. And what we're going to start doing now is shaping this into our little cross, and we do want the portion where it's wrapped solidly around one of those wires to be on the inside, and we want the part where there's little spaces between the 3 wraps to be on the outside. So I'm just going to start on the center of this here, just kind of estimating it. I'm going to bend this in half. Again, working with the more open weave side outward. I'm just going to keep bending this in half into a little bit of a U shape here. And I'm just going to cross over each other our 2 portions. And I'm going to squeeze this down until it's a little bit more tightly closed up, so that we have something like that. There you go. And I'm going to go up just about an inch on this and start crossing these further over each other to start forming the center part of our cross right there where all the wires cross together. So we're just going to start bending a little bit more sharply here. And again, that's going to be just about a little under an inch high. I might make it a little taller here. There we go. So just about an inch, a little less is what we're going for right there. And then we're going to make the 2 little side branches of our cross. So I'm going to bring these 2 side tails out so they're kind of going parallel with each other, running a little bit more horizontally. Alright, now of course for the side arms we want them to be just a little bit shorter. So I'm going to have them be, I don't know, maybe about a 1/2 inch out is where I'm going to start making my bend here. So we're just going to start bending that around to make these side arms. And I'm going to position this tail so that it helps the cross lie flat. So right here it's going over top of this, so I want to tuck this back behind. Just wrapping it on around here. And that way it'll help this to lie more flat with how we have everything crossing over itself. So we're going to have something like that, and you can refine the shape if needed a little bit. Just be careful gripping and bending here on our weave so that you don't distort the weave. So I'm just using the minimum amount of force necessary to get the shape in that I want to have. Alright, we're going to do the same thing on the other side, except this time we're going to bring our tail up and over so that it can nest into this space right here over top of it. So that's what we have now. All we need to do at this point is form the upper part of our cross. I do want it to be roughly the same shape and size as these 2 side branches, so we need to make sure that we have enough woven to accomplish that. And I think I might need just a little bit more woven length here on either side, so I'm just going to repeat this pattern maybe once more, just to get a little bit more length on our weave there. So I'm just going around that one wire 3 times, going around both 3 times, just like that. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side here, just extending our weave a little bit more so that I can get enough length on that top arm of our cross. And then, as before, we're just going to start crossing these over each other, putting a little bit of a bend in on both of these sets of wires. So I'm just bending the right-hand side to the left, I'm going to bend the left-hand side to the right so that it goes over top of this one, so that we have our little cross shape there, just like that. Alright, I'm going to take that tiny little tail to the back of our design so that we can snip it off and finish off that end. So I'm just going to use my flush cutters, whoops, if I can get it focused, just going to use my flush cutters on the back of the design there and push that end on down into that space so that nothing comes apart or can catch on any clothing. Alright, so now we need to form a bail and finish up these 4 wires we have at the top here. So to do that, I'm just going to take the innermost 2 wires and have them going straight up, and we will use those to create the bail. And we're going to use the outermost 2 wires to wrap around the base of the bail and secure everything in place. So to get that started, I'm just going to take both of the outer wires, bend them to the sides a little bit to be out of the way. I'm going to form that bend right above where our weave ends. So again, taking those outermost 2 wires, just kind of bending them off to the side to get them out of the way. There we go. And then our inner 2 wires I'm going to bend straight up, right where they meet each other, and kind of get them running a little bit parallel to each other. I am going to curve this top portion a little bit more to make sure we're preserving that top shape of our cross there. So you should have something like that with our inner 2 wires going straight up, running parallel to each other, and our outer 2 wires just off to the sides for now. At this point, we're going to take our weaving wire, which is still on our spool, and we're going to start adding a new kind of weave, binding these 2 bail wires together. So to do that, I'm just going to take this weaving wire, bring it between here, so that we can transition it over to going around both of these 2 wires. And we're going to do a new weave that kind of alternates between going around both wires once and then going around each of our base wires separately there. So that is the new kind of weave that we're going to do. And to accomplish that, again, like I said, we're going to go around both wires once. So it's going around both of our wires once there. Now we want to wrap it around each of our wires individually. I'm going to bring it up between the 2 wires, wrap it around the top wire once, I'm going to bring it between the wires again, wrap it around the bottom wire once, and this is what it's looking like on the back. And if you're doing this correctly, it should look the same on the back as it does on the front. So we've got it around both once, we've got it around them individually once. Now we need to wrap it around both of them once again. So on the front, we're going to wrap it around both wires once. There we go. Again, we're going to wrap around the individual wires once each, so coming up through both of them, going around the top wire, coming up between them, going around the bottom wire. We're going to go around both wires again, that's what the back is looking like for us. Again, coming up between the wires, going around the top wire, coming up between the wires, going around the bottom wire, and wrapping around both wires once again. Alright, so as you can see there, we're just alternating, like I said. We're alternating going around both wires together, going around both individually, going around both together, and both individually, etc. And as I said before, if you're doing this the right way, it should look the same on the front and on the back. Of course, if you do mess this up and it isn't looking quite the same on the back, that is all right because of how we're going to be forming the bail. So let's go over this a few more times. We've just gone around both wires, so we're going to go around them separately now, coming up through the center. I'm going to go around the top wire, coming up through the center, going around the bottom wire, going around both wires together, come up through the center, go around the top wire, come up through the center, go around the bottom wire, go around both wires together, up through the center, around the top wire, up through the center, around the bottom wire, go around both wires together. Alright, and every few weaves we can just push this all together nice and tightly, and that will help it look more finished and more of an even weave for us there. Alright, so I'm just going to continue that pattern for about an inch, inch and a quarter. Oh, about an inch should do it for us. So I'm just going to continue that weave up till we have about an inch length. Alright, so I've got my weave done just about an inch here up from that point where the two wires come together. At this point we can go ahead and snip off our excess weaving wire. So I'm going to cut that off pretty close there. I'm just going to wrap that tail around to the back, push it down nice and tight there so it's not going to go anywhere. And now we can start forming our little bail shape. To do that, I'm just going to bend it forward slightly. These two wires that we've woven, I'm going to bend them forward slightly right above the top of our cross shape so that we have something like that. And now you can use any round object that's the diameter you want. I'm just going to be using a little paintbrush here. If you have bail pliers, you could use those. Basically, I'm just going to use it to start wrapping this around towards the back to get a nice little round arched shape in there is all that I'm going to use that for. Alright, so that's what we have on the front of the design. On the back, we've got these two tails of our weaving wire that we need to take care of. I'm just going to put little tiny loops in there to bind that off and make sure that our weave doesn't unravel. So I'm going to snip this off maybe about 1/4 of an inch away from our weave that we just formed. Just cutting off those excess tails. And then I'm going to use either my tweezer nose pliers to get in there or round nose pliers if you want to use those. I'm just going to start bending those tails around to form little tiny, little bitty loops there. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Just wrapping that on around on itself. Again, to secure the ends and make sure that our weave isn't going to come undone. Alright, so we've got little tiny loops. They should hide behind our cross shape that we made earlier, so they're not really visible from the front. That's the look that we're going for. If you made yours a little bit larger than that, they might show on the front. That's okay too. It's really just your personal preference and whether or not you want larger, more decorative little loops there or tiny ones that you can hide behind the cross for us. So all we're going to do now, all we have left to do is to use these two tails, and I'm going to wrap them around the base of our bail there to finish everything off and bind everything together. So I'm going to take one of them over top of the front here, crossing it over. I'm going to take the other one over top of the front, crossing it over that one we just placed there so they make a little X shape there. And you do want to make sure you're not pulling them so tight that it's distorting the shape of our cross here. So I'm just double checking that these wires are still lying flat. Going around the back here, we're going to cross them over each other, right above those little loops that we made earlier. So we should have something looking like that now on the front and looking like that on the back. And then I'm just going to hide each of these ends on the sides of the cross here. So this end I'm going to snip off right there so I can push it down and hide it in those other wires. So that end I'm just going to kind of push in against the side of the cross, just like that. The other end I'm going to do the same way in this space on the bail right here. So just snipping that end off and using my chain nose pliers to kind of hide that end in that space in the bail right there. Alright. And really either of these sides can be the front or the back. They are both pretty. It's totally up to you which you prefer to be the front and the back. If you have done your weave correctly, the weave should look the same on either side. Alright, so that is our quick little Celtic inspired wire weave cross design. A little late for Easter again, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it nonetheless. As you can see here, it is very pretty in an antiqued finish as well. This one's copper. You can, of course, antique the silver as well. If you're curious about how I antique my wires, I have done 2 different tutorials on different techniques I use for that. I will leave links for those. If you're on a computer, you should be able to view them by clicking the little lowercase I icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, or they should pop up there with the links for you to click on that and view it. So all you need to do at this point is add your favorite cording or chain, and you should be good to go. Really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, found it helpful and easy to follow. If you did, please leave me a like, thumbs up on this video. Please do also consider subscribing if you haven't already. I have many more tutorials planned, and I want to make sure you don't miss out on those. As always, feel free to leave a comment below if you had any questions making this, or if you had ideas for future tutorials you might like to see. I always take those into consideration. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Happy crafting!